In welcoming multi-award-winning actor, frequent Wes Anderson collaborator, and Asteroid City's own General Gibson, Jeffrey Wright.
Very cool.
So at this point, you're starting to become a member of Wes Anderson's stock company, and I'm curious how he approaches you with something like this. Does he call you on the phone and say, hey, I'm writing something with you in mind? Does he wait and show you the script? How do you first hear about Asteroid City?
Asteroid City was an email. It's just an email. I was thinking about doing something. It might be fun to play, you know, and he'll send the script. The first time I worked with him, we'd never met, and I got a call, you know, the routine way from my agent saying that, Wes Anderson was wondering if I would like to meet with him about a project, and I said, yeah, I'm interested in meeting with Mr. Anderson. And as it turned out, he was in Paris, and I was going to Paris with my kids later that week. So I said, maybe I can meet him over there. He said, yeah, sure. So in fact, we ended up having lunch on the left bank at a place called Le Select. We had lunch, and he described the character from the French Dispatch and said that he had written this with me in mind, and would I be so kind as to indulge him in playing it? And he didn't have the script at that time. He gave it to me a couple of weeks after we met, and I was just floored by it. I just thought it was one of the most beautiful pieces of writing that literally I'd ever been offered in my career. And the character, if you've seen it, the movie was loosely based on James Baldwin, loosely, a guy named A.J. Liebling, who was a food critic for the New Yorker, and Wes even mentioned a little Tennessee Williams. I think everything has a little Tennessee Williams, as you saw here. But the thing was, Le Select, this cafe we were eating, was one of Baldwin's haunts when he was living in Paris. And it was just so typically detailed of Wes that for me felt like a little bit of information, or a little like kind of conjuring of the idea in a very intentional way. So two different ways, two different approaches, but I said yes both times. And now it's gotten to the point where, send it, it's like, dude, I say to myself, you don't even need to send me the script, man. I'm in, but I will read the script out of respect for the process.
Well, one of the things I love about this movie is you can see so many of Wes Anderson's enthusiasms in it, from Tennessee Williams to Close Encounters to all of this sort of just whirlpool of influences he has. And I'm curious, what kind of stuff does he feed you in the early stages? Does he share with the actors some of his sources for these things? What kind of research materials does he give you, if anything?
Yeah, he's incredibly generous with information, as I described, but also with various references. He, as well, there are influences that you'll find, like little breadcrumbs on any given set, for example, as well. If there's, say, a leaflet that you might find in the campsite, he's taken time to write like full comprehensive, like descriptive prose, whatever it is, that if it's a menu, I'm sure, I didn't look at the menus, I looked at pretty much everything else, he's written the menu. I mean, he's incredibly committed and detailed, and he kind of immerses himself in this stuff. I think, you talk about the references, I think that clearly there are his influences that, are kind of presented here. But I also tend to think the more that I've gotten to know him, that so much of what he does, so many of these characters, not all, but many, a little bit autobiographical here and there. And in some ways, these stories are kind of, they're very personal for him. And he, there's a lot of him, even if it's only from kind of an an improvised imagining. It's full of his curiosities, his experiences, and this kind of profound well of knowledge of literature and art and culture that he pulls from. He's a really amazing dude, man. I really love the guy, and I absolutely adore working with him.
Well, he's obviously an incredible writer, and I love the speeches he gives you in this thing. And they're very, they seem to me like they'd be very challenging for an actor. And the speed at which you're delivering these things, it's almost like a Howard Hawks movie from the 1940s or something. Like, how do you get started with a character like this? Does it start with the voice? Does it start with the body language? Is it something else?
Okay. So when we did French Dispatch, we finished the film, then I was in London working on the Batman, and this is maybe 9 months, 9 months after we finished our film, and I called Wes, or emailed him and I said, Wes, I was in the shower this morning, and I think I figured out the voice. It was like, what voice? Like, the voice for the movie that we just finished last year. And I said to him, but what I would like to do is I think I'd like to maybe revisit it and try, and I'll dub the whole movie. I'll do because I think, I found just this little note that I didn't quite have. And the only reason I put it to him was because I knew that he would at least entertain it. Because I know the way he is. And he said, okay, Jeffrey, all right. Well, we'll give it a try, And he let me do this thing. I agreed with him on his ultimate, description of it, that it changed the nature of the character to an extent, which is kind of what I kind of liked. But so we didn't use it. But when we came to this, I had this voice. I took elements of this voice that I found and tried to play it at the start. And Wes said, well, no, I like that, but I think he was going for more of a kind of theatrical study. Like, these are actors, who have trained, and he wanted something a bit more performative, And I said, okay, cool, got it. So we had I did it once or twice, and then, or at least tried to do it, and then we walked around the set for a few minutes and said, okay, all right, and then I just went back and, I don't know, there's a kind of, Adrian Brody describes it as a kind of shorthand with him. And I just get him, I get his writing, I get the tone, I get the irony, the comedy, the spin, the pathos. We speak a similar kind of creative language. And so we'll just, okay, boom, and we went off to do it. Now that said, we shot this in Spain, about 45 minutes east, I think, of Madrid, in a gorgeous little town called Chinchon. About 2 people live in this town, population 87, so 5,000 people. And so, flew over there. I was doing Westworld at the time. They gave me a couple of weeks off. Okay, you go up there, okay, cool, I'm gonna come back. All right, so I get off on the plane, and I'm going through all kinds of stuff. We all have lives, and there's things going on. And I show up, and Wes is like, okay, yeah. Hey Jeffrey, how are you? I'm good. Yeah, I think we're gonna do the speech tomorrow. What? Tomorrow? Like tomorrow? So so we tried to. Oh man, it was brutal, because the one thing that I had forgotten, and you probably noticed, is that you go to most movies and wide, cut to a medium, there's some overs. Nah, Wesley, we're gonna do the speech, and there's just one take, and he's got this incredibly wonderfully elaborate dolly system that Sanjay, his key grip now, devises, and the camera moves from wide to, semi-close or close, without having to, to cut away. And so it's like a piece of theater, which is kind of why he throws this stuff, towards certain actors, because, he'd seen every play that I'd done in New York. He told me when I first met him. I had no idea. So, he wants me to kind of push me a little bit, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are aware of the system that Sanjay's created, but it's like kind of like based on like a train set almost, with these like switchable tracks. And aside from the technical challenges of being an actor in a Wes Anderson movie with those kinds of shots where you've got the long takes and very precise positions you have to hit and things like that, is there an added challenge at all in playing a character like this where you are basically giving these speeches and you're not necessarily bouncing off of another actor all that much?
Yeah. No, the actors are there, and the thing is that, that guy, he doesn't need any other actors, He's got, a little bit Christmas ham going on, And it's also an actor playing an actor who's performing, or playing, playing a character who's performing. So there are all of these levels, and you mentioned this kind of, the tones and the pace, and this kind of, this dialogue or type of dialogue, tone of dialogue from another era. And I think that stuff is still valid. I love that stuff. I love like the old radio shows and the melodrama of early cinema. I love it. I don't, sure, okay, we've gotten, we've moved toward a more hyper realistic, style of performance in film, but that stuff is still potent, And I also just like the oddity, the oddness of it, So, just do it, and I know that he is going for a type of homage and celebration of a certain era of storytelling as well. So, just kind of go for it. And I completely veered off away from your question.
No, answer my question.
But you were talking about Sanjay. It's a really wonderful dance that we all do, and I've never really, I won't say never, but it's certainly there's an intimate relationship with the guys behind the camera in a way that is kind of unique, because you're very much dancing, and he's you're trying to find. We're trying to find marks together, and then if it's not perfect, if Wes is not satisfied, and that means from camera movement and the frame to there was a colon there that I think we skipped. He wants it verbatim, and with practically any other writer, I would be so frustrated with that. But with him, his language is so well conceived and intentional, and the architecture, the structure of his language is beautiful and meaningful. It's not gratuitous, and I just dig proper punctuation, man. And stuff was hammered into my head in ninth grade by Stanley Willis. He left my ninth grade English teacher. So, and again, for me, it's just additional information in terms of what is to be said, where the ideas lie, how are they, it's just more fodder for me to be able to work.
Well, you talk about that intimate relationship with the camera department, and I'm curious, on a Wes Anderson movie, does part of that come from, I know he's sort of not anti-technology, but he likes doing things in a kind of classical way. He still shoots on film, he likes to kind of keep a smaller crew. How is it different from a normal movie? Are there less people? Is there less kind of clutter in terms of video villages and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's super efficient. No, there's no video village. No. It's like, yeah, got it. Okay, let's go. He's very efficient, and he, like this Adrian's character, the director, he's fully immersed. He loves being. That's home life. For him. When he's there, it's almost necessary, kind of biologically necessary for him. And but he's got, I mean, he's got a wonderful kind of idealistic, kind of optimism about him when he works, much like, these kids. I think he's in those kids somewhere as well. So it's efficient. It is a bit old school. It's kind of like, he's very much more analog than he is digital, and there's a craftsmanship about it that, no, it's not about CGI. It's let's create the model that will allow us to think that this thing is real. Like that train. Like I didn't, he was always talking about the train. The train's gonna be here, and I had to go back. I missed the train, and then I happened to see this behind the scenes footage, and that train is like a scale, like I don't know what the exact, but it's about this big, man. It's like, oh, of course. I mean, it's just, and he's just a guy who, man, give me that song on like, on vinyl. Even better, give me one of those RCA, like, he just loves I think the film is very much about that. It's about a golden age of storytelling when the world of cinema and acting and performance and theater changed in the late 40s, 50s with Elia Kazan and Brando and Tennessee Williams and that's modern, that's the beginning of modern storytelling in America, certainly from an acting standpoint. If you think about it, that's like 70 years ago. And so imagine if, you're like 2000, right? And you're thinking that something from the 1930s is modern. I mean, there's something special happened there. And it was influential on Wes, clearly. I think on all of us, of a certain generation. I mean, Brando, he's still the guy. James Dean, the guy. Tennessee, I mean, those guys. I mean, those are creative, artistic heroes for us still. And I think so. The film is very much, in part, homage to that. He uses that as a stage, as a platform to introduce, considerations about contemporary America and this kind of nostalgic America and about the human condition and all that stuff. But it's set on this stage at a very specific time because it was a time when we did things a little differently and maybe even did things a little better. I mean, think about the music at that time. What was going on in New York? Miles Davis playing around the corner, Lorraine Hansberry's writing on Baldwin. I mean, it's just like, it was something, you needed, if they only had TikTok, it would have been fire.
Yeah, it's, one of the great things about this movie is it really does make you want to go back and watch like Elia Kazan movies and all that stuff. And it's really inspiring. It's really a great movie. I really enjoyed having you here to talk about it. I think we have to quit the theater because they're showing another
one.
So,
but wait. Yeah. Did you guys dig the film?
Yeah.
Thank you all for being here and sharing our little story in our little city. I mean, this is pretty cool out here, the whole setup. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.